I went to the first Global Dharma Conference in Edison. Many of you may have gone there as well. Many of you may have gone to the second Global Dharma Conference. And it was at the first Global Dharma Conference that I actually decided that I was going to become a vegetarian. And that was because of the programming and the way in which Dharma was explained, to an audience that is raised here, that is Hindu American, not just Indian. So I think HSC, that's just one story of the massive impact that HSC has had on so many people. And as director of advocacy, I always get questions from students to me, like, how should I respond to this person when I say that there's Hindu phobia here, or there's so many things that I'm confronting in the classroom, or there's so many things that I'm confronting in the media. I'm told that I should shut up because I'm a BJP supporter. That's what people say. How do I respond to this? What are the ways that I can explain this to my friends? What are the ways that I can explain this to somebody who is open to learning, right? Because a lot of times we assume that a lot of the people who have these misconceptions and these questions are closed-minded, and that's why they're making these comments to us. But a lot of the time it comes out of ignorance, right? So if we just think about the amount of news articles, the amount of academic pieces that have been published that are derogatory towards Hinduism, if you're just an American person who doesn't know a Hindu personally, according to a 2012 Pew Research poll, only 22% of Americans know a Hindu personally, which is the lowest of any religious denomination. So just think about that right for a second. If you're looking for authentic information about Hinduism as a regular American person, if you don't have access to a Hindu person, which is 78% of the American population, you're going to form your beliefs based on what you see on the news, what you read in the newspaper, what you read in magazines, what you read Wendy Doniger saying about Hinduism, not based on an authentic interpretation that a Hindu person themselves has of their own traditions, right? So that's why I think it's really important for us to also be able to answer these questions and not just say, oh, it's not important, or just shy away from the question itself, which I see a lot of younger people doing. Just to make a little bit more concrete some of the observations that we've seen today, Nikunj related experiences of being bullied in his high school. That was back in the 90s as a result of in the Indiana Jones movie. But this type of thing continues to this day, and it's actually gotten worse. So a prominent Hindu advocacy group has found that 1 out of 3 high school students of Hindu identity are bullied in their classes because of their religious beliefs. And 1 out of 2 face social isolation as a result of their religious beliefs. So they feel that they can't form bonds with their fellow students because they are Hindu. And think about how sad that is, especially in a community like South Brunswick, which is 27% Indian American, right? So this is why we want to form Hindu Students' Councils at the high school level as well, because we want to provide that sense of community to our children, and we want to provide those resources and that ability for students like Arushi did so well to be able to explain to their peers and be able to explain to people what Hinduism is really about, and to be able to counter these false misconceptions, false perceptions that people have. Just to relate a couple of personal experiences that I've had in the past year, I know that Nikunj mentioned CAA. I think another issue that has come up also this year is Kashmir over Article 370. And we might think about these issues as Hindu Americans as being distant off. They're happening 6,000 miles away. How is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect my identity? Well, I'll just relate an experience that I had in Princeton. So earlier this year in September, the university, through its South Asian Studies Department, held an event in Princeton, which was about Kashmir, about Article 370, in which they invited 3 scholars from a group called Stand With Kashmir, which has a very particular viewpoint, which is supporting basically the Azadi, or the freedom struggle in quotation marks, in Kashmir, right? So these scholars, when they were confronted, asked questions by Kashmiri Pandits who were sitting in the audience, were told that it was not a big deal that the ethnic cleansing happened, that only 200 people died according to official figures, that when they spoke up, they were minimizing Kashmiri Muslim pain, and that's why they shouldn't be speaking up, that they were dominating the discourse, which is not true. If you read any newspaper, it's really hard to find any reference to Kashmiri Pandits. So in fact, I did an exercise where I looked at every single article in NPR that had the keywords Kashmir and Hindu in them, And there were 78 such articles. Can you guess how many of those articles actually talked about what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits? Out of those 78?
Zero.
Well, you're off by one. It was one article. In that article, a man is cited as saying that he wants to go back to his homeland. And after he says that quotation mark, the commentary goes on, but this is exactly what the Hindu nationalists want. So even his pain in that one article that's representing the Kashmiri Hindu perspective is turned around on its head and cast as something that is a political thing that's going to harm the Kashmiri Muslim population there. So this is why these things do percolate down. At the University of Michigan, there was an event held in October where the speaker literally said, it is not possible to annihilate caste without destroying or dismantling Hinduism.
Yeah.
And this was reported in their school newspaper as a matter-of-fact statement by a Hindu editor of the newspaper. The person who reported that story was a Hindu person. At least they had a Hindu name. So this is why it's so important for us to focus on high school students before they go into college, where there is an overwhelming force kind of coming at them, right? Whether it's through their own professors, whether it's through speakers who are invited to the college through the South Asian Studies Department. Many people don't know this, but the very system of Indology that is present in academia is actually very rooted in colonial stereotypes. In fact, the very first Indologists, as a matter of practice within their field, held that it's very important that Indians and Hindus not be able to speak about their own traditions, their own epistemologies, their own culture, because they were inherently biased against it. So that type of thinking, and if you read people like Vishwa Adluri, who's a very prominent scholar from our community, who's at Hunter College, some of you may be familiar with the book The Nay Science, which is his really big piece of work. He kind of dismantles a lot of that. But anyway, a lot of these forces our students are going to face in college, right? And so what we've found in particular is that it's very hard, especially in the current climate, for our students to be able to proudly assert their own Hindu identity and to just be able to explain to their peers what is happening, because their peers are reading everything in the media that's not agreeing with what their Hindu counterparts are saying, so they don't trust what the Hindus are saying and they see them as biased, right? So it's very important for us to be able to develop those skills. And so we see all this darkness, right, that's going on in college and all the forces that are arrayed against us. And if I can just kind of explain what we're trying to do, we're trying to create little jots, little sparks of light and energy, right, that can help fight this darkness. And I think you guys have seen what one of those jots looks like in the form of Arushi, right, who's starting the chapter at Montgomery High School. So there's many such places in New Jersey that can help serve as centers where these kids can have an education in what Hinduism is actually really about, be able to talk to their peers about it, which is so important, have open discussions about a lot of these topics. We don't want to close off any type of discussion, right? Because we are very open and we have the answers to everything. There's no reason why we shouldn't want to discuss controversial issues. So if we look at a school district like West Windsor, Plainsboro, 37% Indian American. If we look at Robbinsville Township, 14% Indian American. All these places in New Jersey have a huge Hindu American population, and they also send students to many universities across the country because New Jersey is one of the top states in terms of sending college students to other parts of the country. So that's why we really want to focus on specifically New Jersey and specifically the high school level. As you've seen in this presentation, HSC has traditionally been a college-focused group, and this is why we want to transition down to the high school level to be able to create that leadership also within our high school students.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Balakarji.
We probably want to also add the sense of